Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the CEC EduSet live lecture. Dear friends, from today onwards, we are starting a new series in chemistry, and this series would be covering amino acid, peptides, and proteins. As this is the first lecture, I hope that from now onwards, you are going to enjoy the entire series. And for this series, we have again with us in our studios Dr. Pankaj Khanna. Dr. Pankaj Khanna is an assistant professor in Department of Chemistry, Acharya Narendra Dev College, University of Delhi. So, without wasting any time, I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Pankaj Khanna, under whose guidance we would be carrying out this entire series. As I already said, this is the first lecture in the series. Let's welcome our guest, Dr. Pankaj Khanna, and let's understand the entire series and the topics that we would be covering under this series through him. So, hello, sir. Welcome to the
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, viewers. As already ma'am has said, we are starting with a new series on amino acid, proteins and peptides. So we would be covering the chemistry aspect of the proteins, the peptides and amino acids. To start with today's lecture, I would be introducing more of kind of the proteins, and then how they could be sorted out into smaller molecules, the polypeptides, and then the amino acids, which are the basic structure. And the focus of today's lecture would be more on amino acids with their structure and classification, their stereochemistry, and the acid based behavior, and last but not the least, we would be touching upon a concept of electrophoresis. To start with, in the next few lectures, we would be talking more about like synthesis of amino acids and the sequencing of peptides and the synthesis of peptide bond. For today's lecture, to start with, I would like to introduce to you the term which is called as central dogma. We as chemists don't use this term much, but as a life scientist or a biologist, people would understand that central dogma is nothing but the change from DNA to RNA and through translation to protein. So what are these things? Why I am telling you these concepts? Because to start with protein, I wanted to introduce to you the biological sense. Before going to the chemical sense of proteins and amino acids, I wanted to talk a little bit about the biological sense, how the proteins are synthesized in our body. So what is happening here? The first step here is the DNA. This central dogma is, as you have already seen, central dogma is from DNA. The message is transferred to RNA. So RNA is synthesized. RNA is ribose nucleic acid, and DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid, and these are the basic genetic material present in any organism, which are the main part of the hereditary. And besides hereditary, the procedures or the processes they are involved, I am talking about those processes. DNA gives the information which is required by the organism for the synthesis of proteins to RNA. So there are more than one type of RNA, and the type of RNA I am talking about here is messenger RNA. This process of conversion of the preparation of RNA is called as transcription, and this RNA gets translated, and the process is called as translation, which is the protein synthesis to give us the protein which is required by the body. So if there is another chance of doing it, because it is more of biology, so I leave it to the biologist for giving lectures, and a few things are already going on the channel on this topic. So coming back to the chemistry part, the protein I have shown here is formed in the body through RNA, which is again getting the information from DNA. So what is this protein I have made here? The protein which is coming on the screen is shown a three-dimensional structure of the protein. Which protein is this? This is insulin. So now I am coming to the part protein. What is a protein? Protein is the most abundant biomolecule which is available in any organism. So everything related in the body, say our skin, the hair has keratin protein, the hemoglobin which transfers the oxygen from lungs to the tissues, and the oxygen stored in myoglobin, all are proteins. All are enzymes which catalyze the reactions inside our body or any organism are proteins. So why I have taken insulin as an example here? The structure is for insulin, and I have given that this is insulin. Why I have chosen insulin? Because insulin was one of the first proteins whose structure was identified, and Frederick Sanger, the scientist name, he got the complete elucidation of the structure in 1958. He got the Nobel Prize for this, and this hormone is pretty important to us. Why? Because insulin's role is to convert the excess amount of glucose present in the blood into a storable kind of carbohydrate, maybe glycogen, in the liver and the muscles. So insulin converts this. When we are lacking insulin in our body, we tend to have what is called as diabetes. So we know how big issue diabetes is, and the tackling of diabetes as a disease or as a problem is now done by taking insulin. So look at the fact that if Sanger had not deduced the structure from an animal, he got the insulin and he deduced the structure of the protein, and now we are able to synthesize that insulin. If the structure of the protein was not available or not elucidated by him, then we would be dependent on the natural source of insulin. So how did he do that? We would be doing the sequencing of proteins and peptides. We would be doing later on in another set of lectures, the upcoming lectures. But today, to start with, what is a protein? A protein, for example, an insulin is a polypeptide. So I can divide or I can say I can move from protein to a smaller molecule which is a polypeptide. There is a correction in the spelling of polypeptide, a P is missing. Polypeptide is nothing but a long chain of amino acids which we would be discussing today, and you can see in red we are having a C double bond O NH bond, which is a typical amide linkage. In chemistry terms we say that it is an amide linkage, but when the amino acids join together, a number of amino acids join together to make big molecules which are sometimes called as biopolymers or natural polymers, but it is not exactly a polymer because the unit is not repeating units are not there, although the type of units are same, but the units which are repeating are different. That is why I have placed R1, R2, R3, R4 and so on. Maybe a repetition of one unit more than once is possible depending on the requirement of the organism and requirement of the protein to be made. So this is a peptide bond which is given here in red, or a CONH bond between two amino acids. When more than one amino acid or more than one peptide bond is happening, we call it as a polypeptide. So we can again further make it to a smaller molecule which is an amino acid we would be talking about today. So amino acids, more than one amino acids combine to give you a polypeptide, and a polypeptide having a number of different linkages like the hydrogen bonding, the disulfide linkages, and maybe a number of polypeptide chains joined by different linkages give rise to a protein. So I have gone from the bigger molecule to the smaller one and vice versa. One thing needs to be mentioned here, that simple polypeptides do not make up a protein always, because the bonding, a number of polypeptides may make up a protein, and sometimes you need some other groups, maybe organic molecules, maybe cations, maybe some metallic ions, like in hemoglobin we have iron. So those things may be required to make a complete protein. So we may say now that polypeptide is the main heart or main whole soul body of the protein, around which a protein is completed. And when I hydrolyze a polypeptide, I get a number of amino acids. So I can call amino acid as a monomer of a polypeptide or a protein, but the monomer is not repeating again and again the same monomer, but there are a number of amino acids which are present in the nature. Now we would be talking about more in terms of amino acids related to the polypeptides and the proteins. So today's lecture we would be only talking about amino acids, how they are given the structures and what is their stereochemistry, what are the ionic behaviors they show. Starting with the structure of amino acids, amino acid may be, in chemical terms, I can give a number of amino acids. Like the first one was, this one is alpha amino acid. Alpha amino means carboxylic acid group has a alpha carbon of acetic acid. I have placed one NH2 group. So this is alpha amino acid. Another one may be a beta amino acid. The second carbon means alpha, then beta. So the third carbon in the chain is having an amine group, NH2 group is present. There may be more than one possibilities, you may make n number of isomers. So why I am telling you this, I would be coming to that. The third one is gamma amino acid, and this one is gamma amino butyric acid. Gamma amino butyric acid is also sometimes called as GABA and is a known biomolecule responsible for the neuroreceptors. It acts as a neuroreceptor in between the joints of the nerve cells. But again, one last example I have in terms of chemistry, I am talking about that these are all maybe the simplest possibilities. I can have the longer chains and the amine group moving away or their isomers and all, but out of these, how many and which form is required for the synthesis of peptides, or for that matter the proteins? So are all of these required by the body? They may be required in more than one cases for another purposes or something related to another biological functions, but for the preparation of peptides and henceforth the proteins, we need only amino acids which are of this type. What is this type? This is alpha amino acid. Alpha amino acetic acid is this molecule, and we would be coming to the names and classification. This is called as glycine. So this is the only molecule which is possible? No. We would replace the hydrogen in the between the carbon which is having both carboxyl group and the NH2 group by a R group. So this you may treat it as a general formula for the alpha amino acids needed for the synthesis of proteins and peptides, or we may say that which are present in proteins and peptides in the natural region or any organism. What next? So there is one thing which is important to note, that when we are starting a series today, we would be talking much about amino acids, and you need to follow a convention that we write always the NH2 group on the left hand side and the carboxyl group on the right hand side. So it is easier for us to determine a polypeptide chain. So as we have already seen in the earlier slides, we saw that there is a polypeptide formed. So this polypeptide is nothing but a carboxylic group of one amino acid and the NH2 group of another amino acid, which is giving you a peptide bond. So more than one amino acid give you the peptide bond by the linking of this carboxylic acid group with NH2 of another carboxylic another amino acid, alpha amino acid, and hence giving you a dipeptide, and so on the chain goes on with the loss of water molecule at every step. We are making an amide bond between a carboxylic acid and an primary amine. So as far as the classification of amino acids is concerned, before coming to the classification, I would like to suggest that I would like to tell you that this R group, as we have already seen in case of glycine, this R group was H, and we have in all 20 amino acids which are responsible for the peptide and protein synthesis. Somewhere sometimes the new things which are coming up or earlier given things, there are two more amino acids like selenocysteine and pyrrolysine, which may also be part of the amino acid group. So it forms a 23-22 kind of amino acid group, which is responsible for all the proteins which are synthesized in your body. So all the peptides which are present are made through this monomer with a variation of R, as we would be seeing shortly. So classifying these amino acids, I have not given you the table of the amino acid. I would be straight away moving to the classification of these amino acids on the basis of side chain, that is the R group. When we are changing the R group, we are getting the new amino acids, and those amino acids may be classified into maybe 3 to 4 kinds of groups. So first one is the R group is non-polar. Non-polar means that the R group is not having, R group is a non-polar moiety. Like in case of glycine we have H, in case of alanine we have methyl, in case of valine we have the butyl isomer, isobutyl isomer, in this case valine. Now you can notice that I have given the names as glycine and there are symbols, because in say insulin, if we talk about, there are say 147, if I remember correctly, more than hundreds of amino acids joined together to form different polypeptides, and those polypeptides have to be given as the structure with the amino acids which are joined. So if we are writing the full name of amino acid, we would be taking a lot of time. So for that purpose, the symbols have been given here. Like glycine, we say a 3-letter initial starting GLY is a 3-letter abbreviation for glycine, and there is a single letter notation for all these 22 amino acids, and in this case for glycine we have G, maybe because the number is less than the 26th number of the alphabets possible. So we can all give the single alphabet letter notation also. Similarly, alanine is given as ALA and A, and valine as VAL and V. So I would be not discussing the names of all the amino acids, I would be quickly running through the classification, as the leucine having a different chain than the valine. In this case, leucine and isoleucine are having the different kind of isomerization, and methionine is having a sulfur kind of group which is present. Moving on to the next set of non-polar, continued I have written because there are 9 amino acids which may be categorized in this category of non-polar. This is phenylalanine. Alanine, with removal of H, we have put a phenyl group. So it is called as phenylalanine. This is proline. with a pyrrolidine ring, we are having the carboxylic acid. If we classify the amino acid on the basis of primary amine and secondary amine, this proline is the only amino acid which is a secondary amine wala amino acid. And last but not the least, tryptophan, which has a indole moiety in it. Next, moving on to the classification further, we have polar groups as R groups and non-ionizable. What do we mean by that? We mean that the group is polar, like OH you can see here, and in the two serine and threonine, and in case of the tyrosine we have a phenolic group present. So these are polar groups, but they never ionize in biological systems. Similarly, we have a thiol group here, which is very important molecule, which is called as cysteine. Why it is important? Because this amino acid is responsible for the linking of two polypeptides chain or maybe a single polypeptide chain having two cysteine molecules through a disulfide linkage. So this molecule having the sulfur group is important for that aspect, and again it is non-ionizable. The last two of this category, the asparagine and the glutamine, they are both having the R group containing an amide group, CONH2 group, again a polar group, but it is not ionizing here. We would be coming to what is ionizing and what is non-ionizable here. Again, next moving to the acidic linkages, we have CH2COOH. So it is aspartic acid it is called, and it is nothing but the alpha amino succinic acid, which is called as aspartic acid and acts as a constituent of the list of amino acid in the acidic group category of the R group. Similarly, alpha amino glutaric acid gives you the molecule glutamic acid. When we are through with the first letters like A for alanine, then we have given aspartic acid as D and glycine has G. So we have given the single letter abbreviation as E here. Moving to the last set of amino acids on classification, we have the basic amino acids. That means the amino acids having an more than one amino group. In the case of acidic, we had more than one carboxylic acid group. In case of basic, we have more than one amine group. So this one is lysine, the next one is arginine, and last of the list is histidine, which is having an imidazole ring as a heterocyclic ring attached, and it gives the basicity to the molecule. So the other type of classification which is required, and you must have done at the school level also, we read it in biological terms also, the essential and non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are those amino acids which are not prepared by the body or any organism and are needed to be taken from outside. Say for human beings, for us, it is those amino acids which are not synthesized or maybe synthesized but not completely synthesized in our body. So we need to take them in our diet such that we are not having any deficiency disease. So what are the examples? We have valine, leucine, isoleucine, methionine, phenylalanine, tryptophan, arginine and histidine are the essential amino acids. So sometimes we need this kind of these kind of examples when we are asked questions in a certain examination. And classifying non-essential, the remaining of the amino acids which may be synthesized and which are synthesized in sufficient amount by the body are called as non-essential amino acids, and the remaining of the above list is the glycine, alanine, proline, glutamine, serine, threonine and etc. and so on are all non-essential amino acids. So this is another type of classification for the amino acids which are present in the proteins and the polypeptides in the natural medium. Further, I have already told that there are a few amino acids, only proline is the one which is the secondary amino acid. So, we may take that into account, the case for the, if we want to classify as primary amine wala amino acids or the secondary amine. So, there is only one case which is the proline. Now, coming to the stereochemical aspect, you must have noticed that when we were drawing the structures of amino acids, there was a possibility of a chiral center at the carbon which is having the amine group and the carboxylic group on the same carbon we are having, and there is a R group which is attached to that carbon and a hydrogen. So, there is another kind of, we can say that there is a classification, but it is not a classification again, because only one amino acid, that is glycine, having H as R group is an achiral amino acid. What does it mean? That the rest are all chiral molecules. Chiral molecules we have done in stereochemistry lectures, that chiral molecules are those which have 4 different groups, and basically we should have the molecule asymmetric. So, by virtue of the different groups available present on the molecule, on the carbon, we call this as chiral center. So, as the chiral center comes here, the enantiomer comes into picture, the capital D enantiomer or small l. Please do not confuse it as dextro and levo, because they are based on the rotation of plane polarized light either towards the right or the left. This D and L capital notation was given by Rozanoff for the carbohydrates, for which OH was taken. If OH was on the right hand side, we call it as D capital, and if OH was on the left, we say that L carbohydrate was present. Naturally occurring carbohydrates are all capital D, but in this case all other amino acids means that except for glycine obtained from proteins, the natural source. What do I mean by the line that all other amino acids obtained from proteins are of L configuration? By this statement, I am claiming that the L configuration is naturally occurring configuration, and the naturally occurring configuration of the amino acids present in the proteins or polypeptides. That means I am not saying that naturally occurring capital D configuration are not there, but for the synthesis or for the presence of amino acids in proteins and peptides, the capital L amino acids only are present in proteins and polypeptides. Capital D may be present otherwise and may be synthesized, and they have been synthesized. Their biological functions may also be known, but we are not going into that. We are focusing here on proteins and peptides and the constituent amino acids which have the capital L formation only. Now, as we have done earlier with a series on stereochemistry, so this is all you can correlate with that. You can guess about the absolute configuration of all amino acids, and easily you can suggest that as we give the priority order nitrogen 1, then because of the carbon and the further here in most cases, in all the cases we do not have any other atom, except if we have H, we have a glycine and it is achiral, and otherwise we have a carbon here. So, when we compare these two, we get carboxylic acid as the second priority and R group as the third priority, because hydrogen always when present has a fourth priority. When we do this configuration kind of the CIP numbering and then the rotation from 1 to 2 to 3, we get that all amino acids have S configuration, right, and you can do it yourself. I have given you the answer for all absolute configuration. There would be an S configuration for L amino acids present naturally in the proteins or polypeptides. Now, we move on to the last but most important topic of today's lecture, which is amino acids as dipolar ions. Amino acid structures which I have shown earlier, you may notice when you go through a certain number of books that those amino acid structures are not written in the way I have shown you. I did it deliberately because of the fact I wanted to come to why that structure which is shown earlier is not the right way of writing amino acid. So, this is the kind of structure we have written NH2CHR and COOH. So, I am here saying that this structure is not definitely giving the complete physical properties and chemical properties of amino acids. Say for example, these properties may be that amino acids are more polar than expected, means that the amount they are expected to be polar, they are more polar, and as they are insoluble in non-polar solvents and freely soluble in water. If something is freely soluble in water, we call it as a polar molecule or a polar group, and which is insoluble in non-polar solvents like benzene, hexane, petroleum ether, chloroform, then we say that the molecule is polar, more so because it is freely soluble in water. But this structure NH2CHR COOH does not give this, does not satisfy this condition of the higher polarity of amino acid. Secondly, they are crystalline solids and melt with decomposition at high temperature. Say glycine decomposes at more than 200 degrees Celsius, somewhere around 220 or 230 degrees Celsius. It has the decomposition point. So, and moreover it is a crystalline solid. Considering that we have NH2 group, an amine and a carboxylic group, these molecules, when taken separately like NH2 group in aniline or ethylamine or methylamine, they are generally liquids. Carboxylic acid, it is this molecule is a derivative of acetic acid. So, acetic acid is liquid and the other forms or other structures which may be derived from acetic acid are near about like those cases, unless and until we move on to a very long chain of carboxylic acid and say more than 12-15 and we get the long chain fatty acids which are solids. Those molecules also do not have very high melting point. So, again we are defying the fact that the amino acids are having very crystalline structure with high melting points. Next point is like there is a very high dipole moment in aqueous solution. Why a molecule of this kind having NH2 group and COOH would be having a high dipole moment, very high dipole moment? It is alright that the polar groups are present, NH2 is there, COOH is there, so they may be giving some resultant dipole moment, but high dipole moment is something which is unexpected for the given structure. Last but not the least, these were all the physical properties. Now, for the chemical properties, if we compare the Ka values for carboxylic acid and amine, these Ka and Kb values for carboxylic acid and NH2 group are pretty much lower than what is expected. So, if I had acetic acid, there is a particular Ka value which should be present there, but the value is not getting matched up with the Ka value of amino acid. Similarly, the Kb value is not matching with the Kb value of NH2 group. So, for what happened, what was the thing which came into mind of the scientists? The scientists thought of another structure which is the probable structure, and we know that it is happening there, is called as the Zwitter ion structure. As you can see on the slide, the Zwitter ion structure is the amino acid which is in the ionized form, ionized, we were talking about ionizable and non-ionizable. So the carboxylic acid here in the COOH is giving a proton, it has given a hydrogen, and that hydrogen has been taken up by NH3 group, making NH3 plus and COO minus, or we can simply write this as NH3 plus CHR COO minus group. So what are the reasons how we are explaining this? We can explain this on the basis of physical properties, melting point solubility and high dipole moment, just as a salt. As a salt has all these properties, high solubility in polar solvents, high dipole moment, we are treating it as a zwitterion or a salt kind of thing. Another point, chemical properties can be defined as Ka is not the Ka of carboxylic acid, but the Ka of NH3 plus, and Kb is for the carboxylate ion, not for the NH2 group. So we see that when we draw this equilibrium structure, the equilibrium is tilted more in the favor of a zwitterion. What is a zwitterion? A zwitterion is a dipolar ion having both positive and negative charge, having complete electron neutrality. So positive charge is present and negative charge is present, but the molecule is neutral in terms of the overall charge. Moving on to the acid base behavior, because we are having the acidic group and the basic group. The carboxylic group is acidic and NH2 group is basic. So we have to define the acid base behavior, and the behavior is quite unexpected. As we have already said that we are talking about NH3 plus ammonium ions acidity and carboxylate ions basicity, rather than talking about the acidity of carboxylic acid and basicity of NH2 group. So we have an amphoteric behavior, it is acidic, it is basic. When we put the amino acid in a highly acidic medium, say pH less than 2, then we get the structure which is 1 number structure. We get the protonated form of the zwitterion, because as you move from this structure 2 to the left structure, you have the carboxylate ion protonated. So we have at pH less than 2 amino acid is present like this. When we increase the pH, the zwitterion is formed, because carboxylate ion carboxylic acid group gives the H plus to give you the carboxylate ion. When we further increase the pH, we get the NH2 group as free, acting as an acid. This NH3 plus acts as an acid now, because there is no hydrogen here. This acts as an acid and you get the third type of structure. Why the proton is abstracted, what I have written here, pKa and pKa of amine and carboxylic acid, you can ask why out of the two NH3 plus and carboxylic acid group, why we have given the H plus first and then the NH3 plus is losing a proton, because NH3 plus has a high pKa value of 9, thus it is a weak acid comparing to the carboxylic acid group which has a pKa of 5, giving the, thus latter gives the H plus ion first and NH3 plus gives it on a later stage to give you the third structure. Now before defining, I have put the heading in this case as isoelectric point, but before defining what isoelectric point and before going to these calculations, I would give you the same above equation with glycine. So we would be treating 3 amino acid, glycine as non-polar neutral amino acid, the non-polar amino acid, and lysine as basic R group, and aspartic acid as the acidic R group. So for the first case, when we should know that how is the zwitterion formed. Zwitterion, whenever the thumb rule is whenever you have to draw these structures for giving any kind of answer, which we would be coming, what kind of answers we need and what kind of questions are there, you just make an all charge structure for a pH of 7. So nearly 7, this all charge structure is formed. And when I have to do the titration curve, or when I have to do this equation, like the calculation of pKa1 and pKa2, these calculations can be done only when I have the completely acidified group, as in case of 1. So what I do, I take a concentrated HCl solution of glycine, titrate it with OH minus NaOH, and when I do it, the titration on a pH metric manner or a pH meter, I get the inflection points at a particular pH and a particular volume. Doing the half of that volume, corresponding pH gives you the pKa1, say in this case 2.34. What does this mean? 2.34 pKa means that at this pH of 2.34, the species 1 and species 2 are having equal concentration. Going back to the previous slide, 2.34 means that number 1 and number 2 are having equal amount at 2.34 pH. You can correlate this pH and pKa correlation by Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, which says that pH, pKa, which corresponds to pH and pKa on the basis of log of salt upon acid kind of equation, that we are treating this as an acid and this as a salt, zwitterion as a salt. So log of salt upon acid, when their concentrations are equal, the pKa is equal to the pH value. So at the pH, when the two concentrations are equal, salt and acid, we have log of salt upon acid as log 1, which is 0, and we have pKa and pH as equal. So that pH of 2.34 is called as the pKa1. Similarly, when I move on further, there is another equivalence point which comes out giving the deprotonation of NH3 plus, giving you NH2 free, because this NH3 plus was a weaker acid than the carboxylic acid. So we have the pKa2 at 9.60. You can correlate to the fact that NH2 group is now the conjugate base of this NH3 plus acid. So again, at pKa2 or pH equal to 9.60, the concentrations of this, which is now acting as an acid, and this 3 ion, which is now acting as a conjugate base or a salt, are equal, and we have pKa2 as 9.60. In between these two pH, we would be having a mixture of all, like at this pH we would be having equal concentration of 1 and 2, but in between these two we would be having this one as a major component and the other two would be present depending we are more towards pKa1 side or we are more towards 9.60 pH pKa2 side. So to get the maximum concentration of this ion, this zwitterion, we take the mean. You can see it, there is a derivation which I am not taking up here for deriving this equation. What is this Pi? This is Pi is the mean of these two pKa values, which gives the pH at which the concentration of this two number zwitterion is maximum, and this Pi or the pH at which the concentration of 2 or the zwitterion is maximum is called as the isoelectric point. Isoelectric point thus is the pH with 0 net charge on amino acid. At a pH when I receive an amino acid as 0 net charge, I would be giving that pH for the particular amino acid as Pi or the isoelectric point. So in case of glycine, it was found to be 5.97 by taking the means of the two pKa values. Thus finally we can also define this isoelectric point as when we put the amino acid in an electric field, at this pH the amino acid does not move. So these are the two definitions, And like I was talking about, there is one experiment I did, so the graph may be not that good, but for your explanation I just took that experiments thing here. The pH is on the y axis and volume of NaOH is on the x axis, and when we are increasing the volume of NaOH, you can see that pH starting for glycine was 2 normal HCl was taken and all of 1 was present. Then we move on to crossing the pKa 1 part, we moved on to 2 somewhere here, we are having in the mean part we are having the 2 maximum, 6 value 5.97, and then further we are getting the third moiety here. So these are the equivalence point of the titrations which are happening here, and by taking the mean of the 2 pKa values we get the isoelectric point. So moving on to quickly to the acidic and the basic amino acid as well, we see that for aspartic acid, like I started with saying I have to draw the structures, all possible ionic forms of aspartic acid. So now I am starting from another direction. I take this all ionized structure as the one which is at pH 7. So as soon as you drop an amino acid in water, you would get at a distilled water or water has neutral pH 7, and you would get this kind of a structure. When I do the pH, when I decrease the pH and go towards the acidic part, I would get the carboxylic acid protonated. So this COO minus is going into COOH, and further when I reduce the pH, I get further carboxylic acid protonated. So it is an all protonated structure which we started with the titration at pH 2. So we can go from writing the structure from left to right, or if we are convenient with the ionic structures, we should understand how the ionic structures need to be written. So you have to play with the charges present here, and you can decrease the negative charge in this direction or increase the negative charge in this direction. So we would be having, last but not the least, in this case we would be having 4 structures. Why? Because we have another ionizable group, carboxylic acid, present in this case. So what is happening? This carboxylic acid is ionizing first at a pKa 1 of 1.88. Usually acetic acid and other have 4, 5 pKa values, but amino acids, carboxylic acid has a very low pKa value. It is quite acidic because of the presence of NH3 plus group, and because of the inductive effect, this carboxylic acid is highly acidic, and you get the carboxylate ion first from here. Then again we increase the pH, we get the carboxylate ion from this at beyond 3.65 pH, we get an all ionic structure, and then we move on to the deprotonation of the NH3 group to give you the NH2 free. So what is happening here? We are moving from charge +1 with NH3 plus and all neutral, we are moving from +1 to 0 charge. 0 charge means that this is carboxylic acid protonated and NH3 plus and carboxylate ion, they are in Zwitter ion form. So for finding the isoelectric point, I need, in this case, I need the structure number 2. From this 2 structure I am moving to -1, because this is 0 plus minus cancelling out, and this is -1, and this plus goes away, so this is -2. So I need, for isoelectric point calculation in this case, I need to know the pH at which this number 2 ionic structure, dipolar structure, is present. For this purpose, as in earlier case, I took the mean of 2 cases. In this case also I take the mean, but I have to decide which 2 pKa values I have to take. Which 2 pKa values I would take? The 2 pKa values which are adjacent to this Zwitter ion, which is responsible for the isoelectric point. Which are these pKa values? pKa 1 at 1.88 and pKa 2 at 3.65, and take a mean. So at 2.77, exactly in between these 2 values, there would be a maximum concentration of the Zwitter ion form. Now I can also define this Zwitter ion or isoelectric point, the Pi, as why I am taking the mean of the two, because at this half point I would be having say at this 1.88 I am having half of 1 and half of 2. Similarly 3.65 pH I have half of 2 and half of 3. So at the mean of between these two I am having maximum 2, because there is no forward direction reaction and there is no backward reaction happening at that point of pH. So when I change pH, increase pH, I would go further here. If I decrease pH, I would go the left side. So this is all about the isoelectric point of. You may notice that for aspartic acid, because we have one more carboxylic acid group present, so the isoelectric point falls in the acidic region of the pH scale, 2.77, because of the fact that we have one more carboxylic acid group present. Next, moving on to the similar way we can write the lysine. Lysine is like COH, CH, CH2 whole 4, NH3 is coming here. As R group, we are having the another amine group present. So what I have drawn again, the structures, all positive charge on the left side, starting with all positive, because the pH is very low in this case. We are having a pH of less than 2 here and less than 2 pH. This is the maximum species which is present. I increase the pH, I lose a proton from the NH3 group, one of the NH3 group I lose a proton. So there is a problem in this structure a little bit, the numbers are not coming right. So NH3 plus I would be reaching this one first, right. So we would be moving from this one 2.18 to no problem is there. The COH group is losing the proton. COH group loses the proton as carboxylate ion formed, and this structure is having a +1 charge. Why +1? Because these two cancel out here and this is the +1 charge which is getting formed. Now again moving towards the right hand side, I get another deprotonation done. Now carboxylate ion is already deprotonated. I would lose the proton from this NH3 plus and get the NH2. Now I am having a Zwitter ion in this form, and this Zwitter ion is the one which I require for the calculation of isoelectric point. Now further I would lose another NH3 plus proton and I would get a carboxylate -1 charge. So for isoelectric point calculation I would be needing this Zwitter ion concentration maximum wala pH, the pH at which this 3 number ion is maximum. How would I get it? I would get it by taking the mean of pKa. I have written pKa2 here, A1 here, it should be pKa2. pKa2 8.95 and pKa3 10.53. By taking the mean of these two, I would get the isoelectric point of the lysine, which is a basic amino acid. So lysine giving you again the basic region pH for isoelectric point. Last but not the least, we would discuss in quickly in 2 minutes about electrophoresis. What is electrophoresis? Electrophoresis is defined as the movement of amino acids when they are placed under an electric field. So what I have made here is a plate of, it may be a plate of a paper, it may be a strip of a paper, or a plate having a polyacrylamide gel, which is called as polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. If it is a paper, then paper electrophoresis. And what positive and negative charges I have placed here, these are the I have placed current. I am putting the sheet is placed inside a solution of a defined pH, and the solution is made conducting by putting a plus electrode here and a minus electrode of a cell, and with the solution I have already spotted the amino acid in between. Why we are spotting it in between? Usually the spotting is done on one side only. We are spotting it in between because we would be getting a positively charged and a negatively charged species so that they can move to either sides. So I have taken lysine, aspartic acid and glycine, we have already discussed, and these three amino acids I have placed exactly in the middle of the strip at a given pH, say pH equal to 6, which is very close to the isoelectric point of glycine. I would get this kind of a system. Lysine, which would be having a +1 charge at 6 pH. 6 pH, it is falling in between this 2.18 and 8.95. It is falling in this range. In between there would be somewhere 6 pH. So this species is the maximum for lysine. What is the charge? +1 charge. So +1 charge, what is happening? +1 charge means that lysine moves to the negative terminal of the electrode, negative electrode of the cell, where the electron density is high, so positively charged thing has moved to the negative electrode. Glycine, by virtue of the pH being its isoelectric point, stays wherever it was. It would not move because it is its isoelectric point pH and it won't move. And in case of aspartic acid, what is happening? Aspartic acid, we may see that at pH 6, where is pH 6? pH 6 is somewhere 3.65 and 9.60. If we take a mean of 3 and 9, we would get 6. So the maximum species present at pH 6 is this one. What is the charge on this species? -1. So -1 species is aspartic acid. So -1 species aspartic acid would move to the positive electrode. So positive electrode would be having the aspartic acid, and this arrangement may be made for other amino acids as well. So I would be winding up the lecture with this, and we would be talking about the synthesis of amino acids and the various ways of sequencing the peptides and the synthesis of polypeptides in the future lectures. Thank you so much for the
Definitely, we would be talking on all the topics suggested by Dr. Pankaj Khanna in our future sessions. Dear friend, I hope that you might have liked the entire lecture which we have delivered today. And if you want to give your feedback regarding this particular lecture, then you can mail us info.cc@nic.in, and very soon we are going to upload this lecture on YouTube for you so that it becomes easier for you to access this lecture the number of times you wanted. So we would be meeting again very soon, and I would like to thank Dr. Pankaj Khanna once again for giving a very productive sessions. So as I already said, we would be meeting again. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.